Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside National Security by the National Security Academy. I'm Cassian Peña, and today I'm joined by Dexter Ingram.
Hi, Cassian. Happy to be here.
So, today we have a very nice topic. I think it's a topic which is very relevant to pretty much everyone, and that is negotiation, right? So, negotiation is important in business, it's important within national security, especially, which is our main focus. And basically, how can you make your best case and find a deal within two parties or more, right? And that's going to be our conversation today. I think Dexter has probably some great negotiation skills that he learned throughout his time in the State Department, everything he was doing, working on projects. So we'll be getting in some insights from him as well. So it's very good to have you over, Dexter, and talk to you today.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah, negotiations. When you first mentioned this, I was thinking, about all the times where you have to go into a room and you understand what the other person wants and what you want, and you have to figure out a way how to get there. And multiple times there are numerous people involved or numerous countries involved, even.
I think culture is important to analyze in terms of negotiation because some cultures might be more open to a more direct style of negotiation, while some you have to be more indirect and kind of play around with more gestures and you have to be a bit more careful with what you do, right? And so if you didn't listen to that podcast, that one might be a good one to listen to get some more context. And now, Dexter, for everyone listening, let's say a young person wanting to improve his negotiation skills or maybe learn some new skills within negotiation. What do you think are some traits he should acquire and learn to really better his negotiation?
Yeah, one thing I would always say is it's not personal, so don't feel like it's you pushing against that wall. You want to understand, kind of elevate your mindset and understand what you want out of this, and really kind of look at the red lines for you as well as kind of understand the red lines for another party involved. There have been times where I've been in negotiations and I said, we've got 80 partners that are going to sign up to this. If you want us to say it's just 80 and not the whole group, we'll make that announcement, but it'll be obvious that you didn't sign up to this. And normally they'll negotiate a little bit more, and we'll get to a point where it's a win-win for everybody.
Let's say you're in a table with various different parties, right? And
Hmm.
your boss or the person in charge of a project, you might even be the boss in the certain project. Let's say you have a certain goal you want to reach in that negotiation meeting, right? How do you make it so you start the meetings in a certain note and end it in the note which you want to leave off in, right? If it's a certain goal, maybe a ceasefire even, right? Or
Hmm.
maybe closing a certain contract for a certain deal. So how would you schedule that and how would you manage that in a meeting, right?
So ideally, when you're doing these negotiations, it's not the first time you're meeting this person you're negotiating with. So, you mentioned culture. Culture plays a really big part. Certain countries are much more direct. I think the US, Germany, the Netherlands, pretty direct. And in other countries, the culture is kind of indirect. You sit down, you have tea, you kind of ask about family, you build that bond. I think it's important to start at the working level as you're negotiating. You don't want to just, say, okay, here's the end product. You want to kind of build the process with whom you're negotiating. So in the case of like a ministerial event where you have 80 foreign ministers and the Secretary of State there, maybe a couple weeks before the event, you come out with what we call a joint statement or a communique that everybody wants to sign up to. Let's say it's, on climate change or defeating ISIS or whatever it may be. You want to kind of share that with partners beforehand. And ideally, you'll have 90% of it hashed out. And then the day of the actual meeting, you might, I've spent hours. I'm not going to lie. I've been in these knockdown, drag out kind of talks where you had a few countries kind of ganging up on one country for very specific reasons because that country did something that the other countries just didn't like, and it was really disrupting the process. And trying to be that mediator where you're not letting the other countries beat up that one country because they're an ally, but that other country also wants to kind of push the envelope a little bit, and you're there kind of in the middle, and you see it all. You got to be extremely direct and say what you know, what you don't know, what you think. I've been in situations before where people weren't really empowered to make changes to a statement the day of. And that's also difficult because you have folks at the last minute who want to make some changes. Maybe I see value in those changes. And I go to this representative or head of delegation from country X, and he's like, hey, my foreign minister said I'm not allowed to make any kind of changes to this. And I might look at him and say, okay, let's look at the previous statements that your foreign minister was comfortable with. And the language that we're using in this one is exactly the same as previous communiques or joint statements. And therefore, your foreign minister did say it was okay. And that is what I think we should do. Then I'll bring a couple allies into the picture who maybe have close ties to country X, and I'll have them with me as well, and we'll kind of sit down over coffee outside the main forum and kind of talk it through and come to a win. But it's all about trust. I mean, if people don't trust you, they're not going to want to negotiate with you. So, saying what you know, what you don't know, what you think, working with people over time, understanding the culture, all those things factor in. I look at like all the times I've had to go into these type of negotiations, discussions, and just kind of being fair and balanced, having a method behind the madness, if that makes any sense, embracing the chaos, but not having an ego. Typically, I would be in charge of putting together, all of aspects of this, whether it's the joint statement, the communique, the event itself, the topics, what we're talking about, what we want to do, what the outcomes are going to be. And, I'm not the Secretary of State, but the Secretary of State would be there, other foreign ministers would be there. And at the working level, behind the scenes, we're constantly just being transparent, I guess. You have a lot of egos in the room, right? And here I am, not anywhere near Secretary of State or a foreign minister, but I'm able to talk to each one of the foreign ministers or the secretary and get to that end game. And they listen to me, and their team listens to me. And again, when you are dealing with 80 foreign ministers, you have a lot of egos, but when they see you time after time, just getting stuff done, just hoping for that win for all of us, there's a level of credibility, there's a level of trust, and I don't walk in there, saying I'm in charge. I don't have to do that. I have enough credibility and enough partners throughout the years that believe in what I say, and understanding that it's not personal, but we want to come together for a win-win for everybody. So it's interesting. You do have certain egos over time. You have partners who say things that you're not always going to agree with, but in the end, you got to find the win-win solution. We have so many partners that are complicated, that have, everybody has an agenda and an interest. They want security. They want trade. So finding that thing that benefits all is sometimes really tough. But I embrace the chaos when it comes to that. I kind of enjoy those moments.
Yeah, I think embrace the chaos is definitely one of the best philosophies to have, right? Enjoy the process, right? Even though there might be pebbles along the way. And I definitely can agree from my personal experience with a trust, right? Because in the end, if you sit in front of a certain person and in a negotiation, and that person thinks that you might screw them over somehow, then first you can't speak honestly, you can't speak sincerely. You might get a worse end product, so the worse bargain, right? Because the person thinks you might screw them over. And then again, if the person feels that you understand them, I think that's core, understanding them and their wishes and their philosophy and their agenda. If they feel understood, then they'll most likely go into a compromise somehow with you, right? So I think that's very important, very crucial to build the trust and make people feel understood, and then that opens the ground, the battlefield for a good negotiation, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been in in war zones too, where you are sitting there and you're negotiating with warlords on certain issues. Maybe you want their support to do something or implement something that you really see value in. And, you know, they come in and asking for $1 million and you're like, I'm not going to give you any money. But what I am going to do is X, Y, or Z. And you kind of go back and forth and you come to a solution that is a win for everybody. You know, I've gone in situations where folks, you can see that like me kind of I mentality in certain folks. You know, I was overseas once and I'm negotiating on something, and the person's like, I want an SUV and a trip to the United States. And I was like, neither one of those are going to happen. But what we can do is, you know, X, Y, Z. So it's really situationally dependent. I mean, to be honest, even at the National Security Council meetings, sometimes you have these negotiations that are happening. You know, maybe you're looking at, you know, giving one organization more resources or money based on, you know, what the situation is on the ground. And another organization says, we can do it better and we should be there. And it's very, very interesting. I remember one time, gosh, it was probably almost 20 years ago, maybe 18 years ago or so. We're in the Situation Room and we're all talking about, you know, certain issues. And State Department didn't have that big of a dog in the fight, so I got to kind of just watch a little bit. And my buddies from the FBI or DOD and other folks were really kind of getting into it. And I remember we all just kind of said, you know what, let's grab a beer tonight. You know, let's grab a beer tonight, kind of chill out. We forgot about work. I think there were probably 6 or 7 of us, and we saw each other as people, and we actually are all really close friends to this day. And we got things done in 2 months that they thought would take us 6 months. And it just was that little bit of downtime and getting to know each other and building that kind of individual trust. I think that was really, really important. I do remember when we rolled out the end product, and we went to present it. One interagency partner lawyers had got a hold of it and just totally marked it up, and we felt kind of betrayed and caught off guard. And that interagency partner who was negotiating with us walked in and said, take this, throw it in the garbage. What we agreed to is where we're going with. And that was just really great to see. It's again, it comes down to trust, and you want to be a good human. You also want to be competent. You want to understand where everybody's coming from and why they want what they want. It gets super complicated, but I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely. I can say I had a similar experience. So I once dealt with a representative from Congo, and he also talked to me because he wanted to get something, a project done in his country. And then obviously he comes up with different elements of the creating a contract, etc. And I noticed that oftentimes one might be negotiating for small little things, right? But in the end, you have to see why these small things are important for that certain person. Is it them getting a raise if they get this small thing done? Is it them getting a promotion, or maybe just for their pride to be able to show it was their own idea? So you have to find out with these minute small details why a person wants the certain thing in the core that they actually are asking for, right? So I think once you find that out, that core belief and that core want of what the person is asking for, you'll get much far ahead, and the person again feels understood, and it will work better for the negotiation, right?
I completely agree. And, you know, and again, don't take it personal. I mean, I remember one time where I was with somebody on my team who was just kind of, you know, freaking out because our head of delegation wasn't doing what she wanted him to do. And he and the other host country head of delegations were talking. They knew they were over time. They knew they were late for the press conference, and they were okay with it. And so there was no reason for, you know, anybody to kind of freak out as long as they know and you say, okay, you know, this is what's happening. It's okay. I've seen that happen so many times. I worked on the Capitol Hill, and I worked on the Homeland Security Committee. And I remember working like months and months on certain legislation, and then, you know, a congressman goes to dinner with another congressman, and everything that I've been working on is out the window, and it's okay because they're in charge. You can't take it super personal.
100%. So even if you're maybe in the car dealership, right? That's I think the most pure negotiation you can get to, or even maybe the wife asking you maybe to do the dishes or something, right? Then it comes down again, making the person feel understood, and then if let's say you as the car dealer or negotiator, right here, you lowball someone, right? You have to be very careful that that person doesn't take it personal, right? Because then the negotiation is off. So you have to find that balance. I think it's very important between, yes, being confident and assertive, but also being humble and then making the person feel like they're getting a good end of the bargain. That's something I wanted also your opinion on because in most negotiations, if the person goes out happy, that's the most important thing. And maybe if they even got a bad deal, that they feel as though they got a good one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember a time when I was in London, and I collect spy stuff. I've been collecting it for years, and so I'm in this antique shop, and I come across this super rare spy camera, and the guy was trying to explain to me what it was, but I knew what it was. And then I think it was 500 pounds or something like that, and I was like, "That's a pretty good deal." And I said, "You know what? I didn't plan on spending that much money today. That's a lot of money. Let me feel good and just take 10 pounds off of it." And he thought I was playing with him and kicked me out of the store. And we both lost. But I just wanted to kind of feel a little better. Like I did some kind of negotiating, even though 10 pounds is nothing. And to this day, I'm kind of like, I probably should have just got that. Because I haven't seen one since.
Yeah. No, I mean
But
that again is probably the direct method of negotiation from the other party. So the person selling you the camera, but that's definitely a good story.
no, started with me like Christmas tree shopping with my brothers and sister um, when I was a teenager. And I remember just kind of being in the zone, haggling on the price of this tree. And I got it down. And my brothers and sister went home and they were super excited. And they told my mom and dad, "Oh, you should have saw him. You should have." And it was like, that was fun. I really enjoyed that. So, trying to find the win-win, the sweet spot, whatever it may be, is important, I think.
Yes. 100%. And then also, I must say, um, Dexter, how would you go about, like, let's say the nonverbal cues, right? Because often in negotiation, maybe a person might not say that they are now not pursuing a certain deal, whatever it might be, but you can sense it, right? You have that third or sixth sense, right? Where you might feel what the other party is feeling or thinking. So for maybe people that don't have so much experience within the field, what advice would you give them to reading those cues, reading that feeling, to implement themselves?
Yeah. Again, hopefully you're not going into any kind of negotiation blind, but like if you're buying a car, you probably are, unless you've gone to that dealership before. For me, it's all about helping people when I can. I remember, let's say, for instance, a foreign minister wants to speak earlier than he's slotted to speak or she's slotted to speak. And if I can make that happen for them, I'll make it happen for them. And it's not, I'm not guaranteeing it, but when you do that, there's a sense of relief and you're kind of hooking them up a little bit. So they remember that in the future. And they see you as a good faith actor. And I think that's super important. Especially like not having an ego. I think that's really important too. I've been in situations where it's just been chaos, and a good partner has kind of sprung a shock on me at literally the last minute, and I'll pull them aside and put them in another room and say, "This is not how partners treat each other." I might let it slide this one time, but like, no, don't ever do this again. And I mean that because it gets pretty chaotic. I've also been in a situation where I'll say, a partner might have been let down by my end. And not necessarily, I remember one time I was negotiating something, and then I went on leave. I went on vacation, which is kind of rare for me, but I went on vacation, and I got a text from this partner saying, "What happened? We thought you'd give us a heads up, that this wasn't going to happen." And I was like, "Well, last I heard, this was happening." And I'll call into the office, and they said, "No, the lawyers just wanted to look at it one more time." And I kind of reassured the partner, "Looks like we're going to go forward," but they just wanted to make sure, especially with me being out of the office, that everything was on the up and up. But I felt bad. I mean, this is a friend of mine overseas saying, "Friends don't do this to friends."
Right.
And
Right.
I was like, "You're right. We shouldn't."
Yes, and I don't know if you know, there's also this very great hostage negotiator. He's called Chris Voss as well, and he's a great guy. He speaks about how to manage these, uh, if it's gang lords or whatever it might be, warlords, right? These very war-torn nations, and oftentimes there's one easy way to build rapport with the other person, especially in these crisis scenarios, which is what he says is when you go into these scenarios, these negotiations he starts him off with, hello, I'm Chris, right? So his name. And why does he do that? Because he wants to establish that I'm just a human being as well, like you are, right? And he says it often works much better than just going in, especially if you come from a power like the United States, where these smaller nations often might have some resentment against the US. And so if you come just as a person, hello, I'm Chris, or I'm Cassian, I'm Dexter, right? And then you present them, I'm just here to help the situation, then oftentimes that will work much better, right?
Yeah, 100%. I remember times where people just were surprised that I flew to their country to see them face to face, and it probably was a 2 hour negotiation that could have happened, on Zoom or something like that. But I wanted to be there in person in the room with them, and they were super impressed by that. I think that's really important. Eating with folks. I mean, I've been in situations, I've never turned down food, no matter what it was. And then I've been given sheep brains, I've been given tripe, I've been given bone marrow, I've been given horse. You name it, I've eaten it because they're looking at you and they want to make sure that you're respecting their culture and their customs. And, if you act like you're too good to try something different or to eat their food that is part of their country's history, that's an insult. So I guarantee you, I've done it all.
Yeah, with the food thing, I remember you telling me as well, where you growed it in a sheet, right, or something like bed covers, right? So
Yeah.
that definitely is very interesting, and it is interesting also to look at how even in the US, it's very normal to host negotiations at things like dinner, right? So it shows like the power food has, and drinks as well to unite people, right, and create more of that bond of again, going back to hello, I'm a person just like you, right? We need to eat, we need to drink, we need to get our things done. So maybe we approach it more as humans, right?
Hmm. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been, you know, with certain Eastern European countries where vodka played a big role in negotiations,
Right.
and that's just the reality behind it. Um, every situation is different. And that's what makes it kind of fun. You get to learn something, you get to eat something, you get to travel and meet people and really connect on the human level. I think that's what we all kind of strive for. And if you kind of again don't fall on your sword for everything and understand that if things don't happen, it's not the end of the world. There's a certain maturity with that. I think when you're young, you're just kind of holding on to everything so tight. And I think if you take that glass and just kind of sip out of it and don't squeeze it where you break it and cut your hand, that's the mindset where you want to be. That you're enjoying the process, but it's not the end of the world if it doesn't go your way. Um, and as much as I can kind of pre-can things, I mean, I would if I was going to the National Security Council and I knew that I had a certain position, I would call up interagency partners, maybe from the FBI or DOD, and say, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking. Are you on board with this?" So we kind of go in together and we're ready ahead of time. And I'll do the same things with certain international partners. I'll call them up and say, "Okay, I remember that one time where I don't want to say names of countries, but again, bringing in a partner who's also close to country X that you're trying to get to sign off on something, and they are close to you as well, is a win. It's not just you, it's not just America, it's not just the State Department. It's a combined group kind of coming in. So that's a really unique skill as well.
Yes. I also always give that advice. Go in with kind of a coalition, right? Go in with like a team, right? And usually best if that team is powerful and has leverage. You build up leverage like that, and it shows your idea has some weight behind it, right? And has some pull. And that definitely is a very good take, which I think people should take home. And another advice I like to give, Dexter, maybe you can agree, maybe you disagree, but I think very important is active listening, right? So you're in negotiation, and oftentimes I think it's human nature to think about what one wants to say next, right? When can I drop the ball, right? Or when can I really close this now? But oftentimes, if you go in just listening what the other person has to say, again, what the person's main motivations are in this certain negotiation, right? You listen to them properly, how their situation is, if it's in their personal life, professional life, then you can build a bit like a better case and maybe give them that one proposal which is going to yeah hit home and is going to work, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. And one of the previous podcasts, we talked about um, understanding somebody's family. I remember that one person again who wasn't doing what I thought she could have done or what she should have done, and I didn't realize all that was really going on with her. And once we kind of got to that piece to it, she was able to rise to the occasion. So it's deep. It's about connecting with people. You probably hear me say that every podcast, but life's about people, connecting with people, and then embracing the chaos. I think those are two really important pieces. Understanding the play field or the layout of the field and what everybody wants and the history behind it. Because words matter, and you'll actually can easily just think, oh, okay, this looks fine to me. You really got to think about it because words really matter, especially when we talk about big issues related to terrorism, climate change, national security, whatever it may be.
And so I would say this was a great podcast. I think yeah, Dexter shared some very good comments, and I think also for the people listening home, maybe if we can negotiate, I think the people listening could be part of the National Security Academy, right? Which Dexter created. It's an academy to bring young people into national security from all different backgrounds. So you can start, you talk about it, but I think that would be a great opportunity for people who are interested in negotiation,
Yeah.
interested in government, and interested in national security.
Yeah, it's about people, it's about service. In network, everything we do is free to the public and free to people that we want to kind of help out and teach and motivate. There's a lot of uh, phone calls, a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, a lot of motivation, a lot of teaching, a lot of insight. And then there's just a lot of information too that is free on the Mighty Networks website as well. So hopefully we're helping out folks. We're definitely not making money doing this, but it's out of passion and it's something that we all really believe in. And it takes time, but you know I've had success in my life. I've been blessed on many levels, and it's important for me to give back.
And I thank you, Dexter, for having this great conversation with me today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure as always. Thanks so much, Cassian.